Hello and welcome to Sundays with Steve show. And today we have an amazing guest, Kristen Kehrer. If you don't mind, welcome to the show, first of all. We met before and it was a good conversation that we had before,
Yep,
some of the
absolutely.
events. If you don't mind to tell the audience, who are you, what do you do, before we get to the good questions about you.
Yeah, so I'm Kristen Kehrer. I identify as a data scientist. My career has sort of been all over the place, from starting with a degree in math and then a master's degree in statistics. And I held a number of analytics jobs in the utilities, healthcare, mostly in e-commerce. And then I went out on my own and I've done a lot of content creation, but I've also been the head of data science. I've built LLM powered apps. I've helped organizations implement LLM powered apps. And I'm very passionate about ML ops.
Wow, that is a big list of achievements, and yet so much to come. So as I said before, we talked about AI and data when we met, and if you don't mind to share a story with us, what inspired you to move into this direction, and how was your journey until now? Like, I'm sure more exciting things are coming. How was your journey so far in this career in the
Yeah.
data?
I mean, my journey. So, when I got a master's degree in statistics, I didn't even realize how data was going to blow up. I thought I was going to be a statistician. I found myself right after school building econometric time series models. And so, doing econometric time series analysis and forecasting in the utilities, so for electric and gas. And then I found that actually I made more money going into general analytics. And so I sort of just followed the money throughout my career. And at times people said that I really needed to, focus on a specific industry and get deep there. But at the time, if you understood statistics and you could leverage SQL, there was a ton of options. So I really just, whatever looked interesting, sort of followed the money. And, of course, we're in sort of a different time period now, but when AI started becoming popular, because it's a machine learning model, because I can code, I was really set up to dive in and try and figure my way out there. And I think that that's like how a lot of people have gotten in there now too, right? Because it was sort of new to everyone, but it came
Mhm.
out, and you just dive in. And it's been like a really interesting career that I certainly didn't think that, at no point um was my path sort of like, you know, going in a specific direction. It was like making a move, optimizing for one thing, and then, pivoting or, optimizing for something else later. And it's been a wild ride, but I really enjoy it. I've, you know, back
And you're
tested a
good at
bunch of
it.
models today. I must have run like 12 back tests. Yeah. No, I'm so passionate about it.
That's very exciting. That's very cool. Like, it's, you never know where you're gonna end up, right? Like, I know so many
Yeah.
people, they go to college for one thing, but the life throws you something else. So everybody's talking about AI now, everywhere. No matter where you go, which industry, everybody's talking about it. From your perspective, what AI is changing, and on the other side, what is not changing in the world of data?
Yeah, so I think it's funny because since I started in data in 2010, it's always been changing. And
Mm,
we'd, get Adobe Analytics, and I'd be worried, am I going to have a job because this makes getting at data so much faster? Or there's been, libraries like Pandas profiling that allowed us to get like a really quick EDA so fast. The amount of I was building bespoke models in the beginning, and now it's a lot of like model dot fit and using XGBoost. And I find that AI is similar to that. It's going to make things easier. It's going to streamline things. I don't believe that that means that we need less people, or maybe we need like slightly fewer people,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to be this huge headcount reduction that people are talking about, because there are higher value problems to focus on. There is still just a ton of analysis and edge cases, and so much work to be done to get these systems up and maintain them and monitor them and make sure that they're working appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody like me who can code, AI has sped up things incredibly. Like I use it all the time, but I'm also able to, if I get results and I need to modify my code, I can read the code, I can make the adjustments. I understand when the AI might be sending me in circles, right? I was working on a
Mm-hmm.
project once and it told me to create a new developer account, right? Like to just get a new API key, which is obviously garbage advice. And then, when I was like, no, then it said, hey, why don't you try a VPN, which would be like, pretending I'm in Japan or something and access it. And it's like, no, the problem is not that I'm in the United States, right? So, like, you need somebody who understands what's going on, because if you don't know how to code, right, and you get the AI to write the whole thing, then when
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem, and there will be problems, there will be numerous problems, there will be edge cases that aren't handled, there will be things that it decides to handle in a way that isn't the way that you were expecting or the way that you instructed. And if you can't modify your code on your own, or take the recommendations from AI and implement that and understand how it all fits together, instead you're going to be asking the AI to build it for you from scratch every single time.
Yeah.
Or, like, we see a lot of PMs, they're like, hey, I want to move faster, I'm just going to use AI, I'm going to build this myself. But that's a demo, right? It doesn't take into consideration the complexity of these systems when you're working on a larger scale project, and this has to fit into a system that's already running. So there's certain people that this is going to be amazing for, and actually for like use cases that aren't building AI, it's going to make everyone faster in terms of how they communicate, and maybe considering different ways of communicating that are improved over how they would have done it on their own. But
Yeah.
for the person who is coding, we still need to, understand how the larger picture, how everything fits together, and the constraints that are involved. But if you're that person who can code, you can now code it like much faster than before.
Yeah, but the human part is still important, right? To verify, but
Yeah.
you need to know what you like. We had similar situation in our company. They were trying to implement something, and they're like, so whatever the output was from that test that they did for a couple of weeks, and they're like, so yeah, I just didn't know. It would provide some output, but if and the people reading it, if they do not know the process, like somebody who's done it for a while, they're like, what does this mean? Because it would just compile a few things together. It's like, yeah. It's like, what does he means? But obviously those of us who knew about it always say, oh, this belongs to this part, this belongs to this part. So it's back to your point, but we still need experts to try to
Yeah.
verify in the right way.
Yeah, it's almost like leadership does not necessarily understand the full value of the people that they have, and their understanding of the limitations and different parts of these very complex systems and how they need to work together. It's just like, they're like, oh, well, AI can code now. Maybe we don't need you. And it's like, oh, no, 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 no. You don't, you don't pay me X amount of dollars a year because like this is simple. Like it's
Yeah.
not, it's all going to fit together.
For sure. Speaking of value, right, it's actually a great falls into the next question. I was wondering from your perspective, of course, you're the expert, probably more than 90% of people I met so far. Many companies, they invest very heavily in AI and data and in terms of finance and also time. But some of them, or many of them, still struggle to create the real business value, right? Why do you think this happens, and what the organizations need to do in order to succeed? What do they need to do differently in order to succeed?
Yeah. So, what I've been seeing, especially when I've been in a head of AI role, um, we all create that matrix, right? Where we're looking for those projects that are low effort and they're going to make the company money.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems that I've seen is that a lot of the line items for how we're going to make the company money are actually reducing headcount. We're going to save X amount of money. And at this point, this example sounds so cliche because it's the one everyone uses, but I've literally been working at a company where I walked in, they had already started building an AI to handle customer service.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, they were working on ML ops. So it was good that they understood that they needed experiment tracking and monitoring and all these things, but they're like running ahead trying to build this thing before they have those safeguards in place. So, and I already said I'm really passionate about ML ops,
Mm-hmm.
but also they actually did reduce headcount and this thing wasn't working yet, right? And we've also heard too, this has been my thing since the beginning, but now I think it's common knowledge that we say start with an internal use case so you can start to understand what weird things you're going to get so that you can actually fix that before it goes live to customers, right? So start with an internal use case. They started with
Mm-hmm.
an external use case. It was awful. It really only handled a tiny percentage of what it needed to handle. When people got frustrated, it wasn't moving people to an agent. When it did move people to an agent, now all the most of the agents had been fired. So people were sitting on long wait times. It was just this awful customer experience. And I would love to get back to that place 10 years ago where we actually thought about the customer experience. And hey, if we send an eighth email, like what's the drop off going to be compared
Yeah.
to the actual incremental gain? Like everybody seems to be looking at a couple weeks ahead rather than a year ahead. But when you can find those use cases where you can actually um, free up people's time so that they can work on higher value projects, or there are going to be use cases that make money, but don't my advice is to not take that use case where the number looks good for the reduction of headcount if you're placing that against another use case where maybe it seems like it's going to be less lucrative but it actually enhances the customer experience and makes money in a different way. I would 100% really like barrel down on that one as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the one where you're starting external, you are, trying to reduce headcount as your way of justifying the project. Like that is not you're going to have some upset customers, I think, if you go that route.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's great. Uh, if somebody wanted to build a career just like yourself, right? Like if it's a mentorship question from you, if it's okay. If somebody would want to build a successful career in AI and data today, what advice would you give them, and which skills should they start developing like right now?
Yeah, so it's funny because my daughter is turning 12. And I feel like, we have these discussions. So, data science degrees didn't come out until 2016. So, I was
Mm,
already in the field at that point. And I think personally, if I was talking to my own child and giving them advice, I would steer them in the direction of a degree in statistics, a degree in computer science. Um, I don't know if like people are going to come at me with pitchforks, but data science degrees feel like a jack of all trades, master of none. And when you get in there and you are like the star developer, or you have like really deep expertise in an area that is useful to the business, because for years I was the only one who would be on a team and had experience doing time series, or
mm,
had really deep knowledge of hypothesis testing and when to do one tail, when to do two tail, all these things, right? And so I feel like you are more valuable. You can do, a degree in computer science and get a minor in data science or whatever. A lot of data science is easy to pick up, but if you can go really deep in one area, I feel like you're setting yourself up for success more than going generalist.
Interesting. Because I had this conversation with my sister Kate, through whom we actually met, of
Who I
course.
love very much. Yep.
Yes, I too. Me too. Me too. So she has kids similar to age to your kids, and I was asking her like, would you send your kid to college in general? That's a great advice to be specifically, as you said, statistics, and it's if it's you have interest in it. And I was like, would you? Because we both went to college. She went to Baruch. I went to Baruch also. I went to finance, so but she changed her career. Uh, and she said probably not because of additional, like, just recently I know somebody even older than me a little bit, and he left the job and he went to get his master's degree, right? And I was like, do you need to spend 3 years and to get the master's degree, or could you take few specifically courses specifically in that area, whatever that area is? Like, is it still, I don't know. To me, I don't know. I have two kids out of college. One is still all same age also as a kid. And in 10 years would or 8 years, I don't know if is it still relevant. Is it easier just to take 5 courses specifically for the topic, get some certification, and you should be as good as 2 year degree? I don't know. What do you think?
So I don't know, about like 10 years ago, I
Mm.
noticed that everyone who was my manager ever had an MBA. So I
Mm.
was going to go get an MBA. I didn't. I have no MBA, but I think that there is still value in the name on the resume. There's value in the
Ah.
degree. Do I think that the education um, that you could get someplace else could be the same? Yes. Do I think that like, it's almost at this point like you're not paying for the education, you're paying for the network and the opportunities. Just like we spend time
Ah.
on LinkedIn building up a network, the university has a network. People see the name on the resume and there's bias, right? And we can't get around, is it right? Probably not. Like, there's probably people who are more skilled who don't have a degree than some of the people who came out with a degree. But I
Hmm.
think that the name on the resume matters and still makes a difference. And in this career, you're going to be a lifelong learner anyways. You're going to continue, learning and educating yourself forever, and it's going to move fast. But I'm fully intending on sending my kids to college.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Uh, I heard that I read it on LinkedIn somewhere that do business leaders have responsibility before pushing this information learning curve kind of to employees? So you got to learn about AI, you got to learn to implement. Do they like do they have responsibility to learn it themselves so they know exactly what they're talking about? But in that line of things, I had a next question. So if you look in 3 to 5 years in the future, right? What should be today's business leaders doing now to prepare in the next wave of AI and data transformation, but not only to kind of push it down the pipeline, but also like CFOs and top level management, what should they really be doing themselves also, not only the rest of the company?
Mhm. Well, I did just come out with a LinkedIn learning course recently
Oh,
about
congratulations.
AI workflows and tools for leaders. So it doesn't go very deep into the technical, but it, tells you about why you need data lineage, experiment tracking, model monitoring, and all the different things if you're trying to build out these systems. So that's an easy watch. First of all, I'd suggest you watch that, and then second of all, I think
Okay.
it really comes back to the theme that I was already talking about was, don't think about trying to reduce the headcount of your analytics team, because if you're doing that, you're just trying to be the status quo, right? Like if you want to be awesome, you should have an awesome team. And there's no end to the number of projects that there are going to be that you can work on. Like once you solve one, once you build something, there's another problem to solve, there's another thing you can build. And so with a smaller team, you're just going to be thwarted.
Mhm.
So I would focus on, really building up the skills of your team, understanding what you need to build AI systems, and focus on being awesome. Yeah.
Focus on being awesome. I'm gonna
Focus on
quote that.
being awesome.
I'm gonna quote them. Kristen said you have to focus on being awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of being awesome, you are, right? You build an incredible reputation by consistently, you always share knowledge. Um, and if somebody wanted to build a personal brand, that's kind of like, I am asking this question for me first and then the rest of the people. If somebody wants to build a personal brand on LinkedIn today, what one piece of advice you'd give them to help them in that direction?
Yeah. I mean, first, if you don't have a brand on LinkedIn, create one, like start, because there is not a job application out there now that doesn't ask for your LinkedIn URL. So people are looking. And then from that perspective, if you're using it to get a job, and the followers and the friends and the amazing relationships will come from there. But I've always written about my personal experience or about the thing that I am actively building. And you do have to be careful, because if you get too technical, if you go too deep, um, then you're too niche, and it doesn't
Mhm.
apply to everyone. But when you find those moments where you have an aha about something in business, or you remember a story that taught you something when you were younger, or you're actually building a project, and like my next blog article is probably going to be about the stuff that I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
um you just share, openly and honestly about what you're working on, and the friends and followers will come, and you cultivate those relationships, and you'll end up getting new opportunities, and it'll grow you in a different way.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Perfect. So, in the conclusion of the interview, first of all, once again, thank you for sharing so much incredible information. I'm really looking forward to finding that LinkedIn course. Oh, by the way, congrats on creating the
Oh,
course.
thank you.
If other people would also want to follow me and to follow you in LinkedIn and to find more information about the courses you're working on, about other projects you're working on, where would people find more information about you? Besides, is there some other stuff? I know you probably have like most important people, like a YouTube channel, like these other sites.
Yeah, so I have a website, datamovesme.com. And that is where my most recent blog articles go up. I'm like
Mhm.
not incredibly consistent there. Most of where I spend my time is LinkedIn, but yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, or my most recent articles will be on my blog.
Perfect. So that course is we just go to LinkedIn, go through your name and find that course,
LinkedIn
right?
Learning, search my name, yep, and it'll come up.
Perfect, perfect. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining and thank you for teaching us all this information.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Thank you. Thank you.